Greetings. Our Frederick Riddle here with another episode of Christian News and Views. This is episode 2630, and uh, today is Friday actually, and we're going to be looking at an article that I just think that kind of touches on us. I think this is an important one for us, being as we are Christians. This one is talking about a man by the name of Don Lemon. And so you're probably already familiar with this case, but let me cover it. Don Lemon will appear in a Minnesota courtroom Friday to be arraigned on federal charges following his arrest last month in connection with a protest at a church in St. Paul. Federal prosecutors allege Lemon and another independent journalist, Georgia Fort, participated in a takeover-style attack of city's church and intimidated congregants after the two live-streamed a group of anti-immigration and customs enforcement protesters rushing into the church on January 18th, interrupting the service. He was held overnight in federal custody and released on his own recognizance the following day. I have spent my entire career covering the news. I will not stop now, Lemon said on the steps of the federal courthouse in Los Angeles following his release. And in fact, there is no more important time than right now, this very moment, for a free and independent media that shines a light on the truth and holds those in power accountable. Lemon has repeatedly said, even during his live YouTube stream of the church disruption, that he was present at the demonstration as a journalist, not an activist. In footage of the episode, Lemon was heard saying, "I'm just here photographing. I'm not part of the group. I'm a journalist." Well, I have my opinions about something there where reporters wrap themselves up into how they are doing something that the world needs to see, and that they are just serving the public. They are being a reporter. What a sad commentary. When a person who claims to be a journalist and is only part of a criminal activity to cover the truth. Today, so-called journalists will include their own bias in their articles as fact and apparently justify their being a part of a church invasion as, "I'm just here photographing. I'm not part of the group. I'm a journalist." Popcott. It's stupid that they would even do this, but what's even worse is that our courts accept such things. And the general public has, in large part, I think they're getting wiser to it now, but this is not what journalism is supposed to be. When the Constitution was written and the Bill of Rights passed, the whole idea of a reporter was to report the truth. They were to do it in a manner that was respectful and legal. While that's not said, it was certainly their understanding. If it was possible to roll over in your grave, our forefathers would be doing that. This is taking the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and turning them upside down, inside out. It would be more honest to say, "I'm here as the propaganda arm of this gang." Because that's all they were doing. They were filming the invasion. They did nothing to protect the congregants, to warn them or anything. They were there to film it. To me, that is propaganda. They're not out there getting the news. We don't need that kind of news, folks. They could have stayed outside and filmed it from there, but they had to go inside. And to me, as soon as they went inside with that gang, they were part of that gang. Doesn't matter where they thought about it, what their motive was, or anything. They joined themselves with them. They were not in any danger of that gang at all. And They had the right, as far as that gang was concerned, to film the whole thing. In effect, that was what it was. They were the propaganda arm. Our forefathers, I already mentioned this, would have turned over in the graves, but they never imagined that the press would ever stoop so low, has become so soiled by the filth that they were reporting that all you could see was that filth and probably the stench that goes with it. It is a tragedy that is probably the reason the American public is turning away from the printed press, the media, really, not just the printed press. Their the coverage, viewership of your average TV news, I think, is shrinking. I haven't really paid much attention to that. Other things have been on my mind, but it's there. And you don't really need to know the numbers; you can see it. Where I live, the newspaper, uh, the I know a guy who this area is his domain of, so to speak, and he lives here, and he only has a handful of people in which he brings the paper to. Most don't watch it, don't read it, don't want it. That's not his fault. That's the press's fault because they have decided that bias is actually fact. If it's their bias, they've and they include it in the reporting. You've heard me say this before. So what is also sad is there once was a day when the most hardened criminal, look at this, folks. You get this in history. There was a day when the most hardened criminal would not invade a church. It was very rare, if it ever happened at all. Part of today's culture that accepts such invasions is that the modern church itself has joined hands with the world instead of preaching the wonderful news of the Holy Scriptures. I'm not saying all churches, but when you have some churches joining hands with the world like that, it sort of casts a shadow over all churches. People tend to judge all churches by the ones they know. And so they might think that the church I go to does certain things that they have seen churches do, which would be totally wrong. We go by the Bible and we preach the scriptures. We don't get involved in politics except as the Bible indicates we need to be. We don't join hands with the world. In fact, the church is supposed to be preaching the gospel to the world to get the world on track with God. But the world doesn't want anything to do with God. And so we have no business joining hands with them. So, even so, to see churches that are actually worshiping God being invaded and intimidated by others is an alarming turn of events. That is not political speech, folks, nor is that good journalism. That is outright intimidation and it's violence. Whether anybody got hurt or not, it's not the point. They went in and took over that church service where people were just gathered together worshiping God. I don't know much about that particular church. I don't know if they even preached the Bible or not. But the fact that they were invaded, that is what is alarming. And that is something that we just can't stand by and just say, look away. It's wrong. It's alarming. It's dangerous, and it can only lead, if it's allowed to go unchecked, it's going to turn into something very, very ugly. We need to pray for revival. Our country needs revival. Now, you've heard me before. I believe that revival is coming. I believe revival is here now, but it's not united. It's scattered across the United States, pockets here, pockets there, and I think it's beginning to come together to by like a glue or something like you might coming together. And if it does happen, we can expect a great revival, such as I've never seen in my lifetime. But that's still future. The thing is this: we need revival. We need our government institutions reflect the concerns, the beliefs of our forefathers. I'm not saying the church needs to begin, the government needs to get into the church. I don't want them into the church, but they need to let the church into the government. The so-called wall of separation does not exist. It's not in the Constitution, and it's not even what took place. President Jefferson mentioned this wall of separation, and what he was talking about was not to keep the church out of the government, but to keep the government out of the church. That was always the historical problem. The government and the church uniting into one thing. And we saw it even in early America, where separate entities at that time, they weren't states, but territories, whatever you want to call them. They were like Pennsylvania. You had to be belong to a certain church there. You go to another Massachusetts, say you had to be a member of a church there, and you go to different areas, and you had to be. There was a state church. Didn't mean the church ran a state. The state controlled the church and used the church as a way of controlling their people. We don't need that. We don't want that. It's not only unconstitutional, it's not in the Bible either. The Bible doesn't want it. The Bible wants us to be ruled by God and by Christ himself. And the day will come when Christ will take his throne and rule the whole world. But right now, that's not the case. And we are expected to be loyal to him, to represent him, and to run our lives accordingly. And so this whole thing is disturbing. But it's not unforeseen. It's not a surprise. I've watched it coming. I'm almost 83 years old, and I've been watching it coming for a long, long time. And it's going to get worse unless we have a revival. And how long will that revival last? I don't know. Well, I do know this. The United States is not mentioned in the Bible. And so something happens. I think, in my own opinion, I think there's going to be one more revival, one more last chance for this nation. We'll have some good years and some great years, but then we're going to drift away again. That's the nature of human beings. We drift away again, and then there will not be another opportunity, and we will become a third world country, and we will not be mentioned in the final world events. We're just a third world country then. That's what it seems to indicate. Well, you have a great day. I hope this has been informative to you. I don't know that it's all been that encouraging, but except for the fact that there is a revival coming, we have pockets of it now. And inspirational, again, that Christ is coming back, and he will establish his kingdom and sit on his throne, what we commonly call the throne of David. So I hope this has been good for you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Don't forget, this is brought to you by TNR Independent Books, which is a Christian indie publisher. We teach you how to write, we publish your works, and we also sell books. You have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.